In today's episode of the Motorhome Matt podcast.
In light of the recent popularity of off-road capable motorhomes, we open what seems to be a can of worms about insuring these vehicles.
And we answer your questions about tables in moving motorhomes, removing travelling seats from Bailey motorhomes, and extra safety precautions. Welcome to the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
Industry insights and expert advice for the world of motorhomes, caravans and campervans, and brought to you by thatleisureshop.com.
Now, we always say it, but please do remember to subscribe on your favourite podcast app. And make sure you hit the bell and subscribe on YouTube, brought to you by arabasecreative.co.uk. It's time for our regular Warner's Events feature here on the Motorhome Matt podcast. And I'm joined by Darren the Urban Motorhome and Robbie from Warner Shows. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How you doing, Darren?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So this week we're talking about the Motorhome and Campervan finale at the Lincoln Showground. Robbie, tell us, when is it?
It's the 20th to the 22nd of September.
So, Robbie, what can people expect to see at the Lincoln Show?
They can see over 40 dealers and over 200 accessory stands at the show. They have a chance to see the new 2025 models and possibly get a deal on the new on the old 2024 models.
Well, they'll be old by then, won't they?
They will be. Yeah.
And there's also loads of sale offers on, aren't there, Darren, around the whole trade area. What kind of trade stands did you see last year?
There was loads of stalls with like the gadgets and gizmos, and I like the cooking stands, to be fair, like I've already mentioned. So yeah, I'm always looking at the barbecues and all the cooking equipment, to be fair. And
of course that leisure shop will be there with a range of furniture, tables and accessories. I've got to get that in, of course. Robbie, this is a big one for entertainment, as all the shows are, but we've got a super name coming to this one. Who is it?
We do. We have a returning act, which is Boney M, featuring Maisie Williams, who was really popular at one of our previous shows a few years ago.
And Maisie Williams was actually a member of Boney M. Still is.
That's correct, yeah. Very big member of the Boney M.
Darren's never even heard of Boney M, have you?
I don't know what you're talking about right now.
It's going to be a brilliant weekend. So, Robbie, tell us, how much is it going to cost?
So it's £82 for 4 nights camping from the Thursday to the Monday. And then it's £100, assuming that there's places available. For day visitors, it's £7 pre-booked, and then it's £10 on the day visitors as they turn up. And I believe we have a discount, don't we?
We have a discount code available for day tickets. Yes, when you pre-book, use the code MOTORHOMEMAT, and they are just £6. So it's £82 for the weekend. Such great value. And as Robbie says, if there's space available, you can turn up on the weekend. It's £100. But I would be checking first. This event does get fully booked, doesn't it? You can find out more about all of Warner's events. Just head to mhmp.info/Warners. In the meantime, I just want to say a massive thank you to you, Darren. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. See you there.
I will see you in Lincoln.
Barbecue will be ready.
Looking forward to it. Pork belly again, eh?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. And Robbie, thank you to you too.
Thank you very much.
It's the Motorhome Matt podcast with me, Keith Gooden.
And me, Motorhome Matt.
Brought to you with thatleisureshop.com. A few weeks ago, we had an episode on a Heimer MLT. It rolled over, and we found out the insurance claim was denied because it was driven, in the insurance company's words, off-road. This was a bit of a microphone drop moment, and we wanted to look into this a little bit further. So, Matt.
I actually rang Michelle to inform her of the response we'd had from Allianz, her insurer, and she seemed really quite surprised by their response.
Now, Michelle was driving the motorhome at the time that it rolled over. Now, with all these off-road capable motorhomes rising in popularity, Matt, are we going to see more motorhome owners' claims being denied by insurance companies?
Well, that is my concern. So, and more the point, are those owners and thus insurance policyholders even aware that they could be driving those vehicles without appropriate cover? We're seeing a boom in these motorhomes or campervans with knobbly tyres, high suspension. They look like tanks, some of them, with all the equipment strapped to the outside, ladders and waffle boards that mean you can drive over muddy fields. And they look the part. And I'm sure there's an element of the Chelsea tractor. People doing the school run in a Range Rover, and the only off-road they do is up and down the curb with the kids in the back. Yes, that's true. But nonetheless, if you venture off-road in one of these vehicles, are you insured? And it would seem you may not be.
You've got to buy the right insurance. Now, what is off-road? Leslie and Andy Moore are from Bath, and they wrote to us, "Hi Matt, we've just watched your latest video. We had a thought. If your camper isn't insured off the highway, then are all of us motorhome owners insured when we leave the road to enter a campsite? Surely it could be argued that would be off the main highway." Leslie and Andy, good question.
We had exactly the same thought. So I want to know, what are the facts? How do you define off-road? I have driven down some properly narrow lanes with grass up the middle and hedges at each side. It's definitely not a classified road. It's probably a privately owned road. In order to get to a stopover or even a campsite or a farm that we're stopping on, am I insured when I'm driving down that road? And how do I find out?
Well, James Martin is from MOS Adventure, and we asked him some questions. He says your points raise good questions about areas that a lot of people wouldn't even think about. It's certainly something people should be aware of for sure. There will also be situations where any type of motorhome/camper van will be trying to access park-ups falling into the same category. You haven't got to go far off a highway to be not insured. It raises more questions for the wider community, not just those going off-road. Well, there you go, man.
Well, I asked James as well. I said, how do you ensure that your customers are aware of the specific insurance needs for an off-road motorhome like the one you build?
And he said this, as we discussed, is very much down to the discretion of the consumer, knowing what they plan to do with the van and what cover they need. Depending on this, we can advise as a manufacturer the customer of the risks, but they would have to do their own investigation towards the correct cover. So very much on an advisory basis. So it's caveat emptor, it's buyer beware again, isn't it, Matt?
And I asked him, what guidance do you provide to your customers about the potential insurance limitations when driving off-road or on a de-restricted road?
Again, says James, advising the customer of the potential risks involved while drawing on my own experiences, finding out what the customer plans to do with the vehicle and advise them accordingly.
He's offering a lot of advice to his customers, isn't he?
He is indeed.
I don't think all manufacturers would have the same passion that James has, I have to say. I asked him, do you work with insurance companies that offer policies to cover the unique requirements of off-road capable motorhomes?
And James from MOS Adventure says no, they don't do that. They're a small company and it's not something they currently offer.
And given the increasing popularity then of off-road capable motorhomes, e.g. those with four-wheel drive, large wheels, raised suspension, what should new owners be aware of regarding insurance cover? If they plan to use the vehicle off-road, then it's done at the owner's risk. Unfortunately, there won't be many policies, if any, that will cover a £150,000 camper van going off-road. He says, I also don't know or see many that spend that sort of money on a van and take it off-road. I do, however, know plenty of self-converters that use their vehicle off-road and accept it's a grey area that they're in. As we mentioned before, a lot of it is people wanting to look and not the practical use that a 4x4 offers. James says that many people that he comes across don't come from an off-road background and don't then understand what they're buying and what they're buying it for. In the end, many people opt for a two-wheel drive vehicle and give it the off-road look. It's the Chelsea tractor thing. As you exactly
said
what I was thinking.
He says, again, it comes back to initial discussions with the customer and giving them the direction. And we've also sent similar questions to a few insurance companies, and this is what we got back from them.
Now, we've approached a number of insurance companies for comment, and I'm delighted to be joined by some of the team from Caravan Guard, one of the industry's longest-standing insurance brands. We've got Liz with us, who's head of PR and comms, and we've got Jason with us, who's the head of policy. Is that right?
Yep. That's okay.
Brilliant. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. So, this is a big topic, and guys, I really appreciate you joining me to answer some questions on this, but does your standard insurance policy cover drivers when they're in their motorhome off-road?
I think understanding what we mean by off-road is key here. Like most policies, we aren't going to provide cover if you decide to take your camper van or motor around the Nürburgring. And likewise, if you go on a trekking holiday, then this would need to be considered by the insurance company and cover granted if they would accept it. Okay, our policy covers you when the camper van is stayed in overnight for holiday and leisure purposes. So travelling by public road to get to an overnight campsite or stopover is allowed, providing you're legally allowed to be camping there.
Okay, got it. So I'm talking to you now in our motorhome from the New Forest showground. I'm in a field during the show, and to get here we drove down a dirt track to then stop over in this field. We are definitely off-road. Am I insured?
Yes, you are. Well, you will be with us, that's for sure. Campsites are generally on private land, and they are accessed off a public road. So getting from the public road to your pitch would be covered, providing you're legally allowed to be on the land, and it's to get to your destination where you're allowed to go to camp up overnight.
Okay, so how can a driver determine then if a track or road is considered off-road according to your policy terms?
I think it comes down to what people have done for many years. And as I say, if you're going on a journey to a campsite, you have a route, and probably 99% of that route will be on the public road, but you need to leave that public road to get to the campsite. Now, as I say, that's generally on private land, and you have the permission of the landowner to go to their campsite. So you are going off-road, but you are allowed to be on that private land for the purpose of getting to your overnight destination.
Okay. I think I've got it. So we need to be mindful then if we're going wild camping or off grid, let's call it that. And we're driving down a track to a private piece of land and we don't have the landowner's permission. What you're saying is we're off road and we might not be insured.
One of the general obviously principles that we ask you to comply with is you follow the rule of the road and the law. We cannot monitor everything that you do. We're insuring your camper van or motorhome. If you choose to go somewhere where you don't have the permission to go and stay in overnight, then there is the chance in those circumstances you may not be covered because you are somewhere where you don't have permission to be.
Yeah. So these are two huge trends, Jason, where the off-road capable vehicle and the desire for people not to go to a campsite and to stop off grid. These are two big trends we're seeing right now in our industry, which are potentially putting people at risk of not being insured. And with the boom in these vehicles, what should a prospective owner consider with regard to insurance coverage of this very funky motorhome?
So I think they are funky. I think personally, I think they look great. They stand out from the crowd, and there's something a bit different. And let's not forget, four-wheel drive capability is really useful anyway, particularly if you go to, motorhome camper van all year round.
Yeah.
I suppose I'd compare it to, I have a large caravan. I tow it with a Land Rover Defender. I chose that vehicle because I like how it looks. I like the car. It tows really well. And if I'm using my caravan all year round, then I know there's very little risk of me getting stuck somewhere. I think we've all seen pictures of someone trying to get out of a muddy field in the depths of winter. So I've got that confidence. And what I'm not planning on doing is taking my Land Rover up and down a mountainside. So I think a lot of the customers my opinion is a lot of customers who buy these vehicles are doing so for that peace of mind that they can do what they want, they can go anywhere, but they aren't planning on taking it, as I say, up the side of a mountain or going trekking over some mountain in Europe. So
yeah,
if you're using it,
Jason. So I was going to say with your Land Rover, there are lots of policies that you can buy for going off-road because it's a very popular pastime and it's one of the reasons you would buy the car. But do Caravan Guard offer such a policy for a capable off-road capable motorhome?
No. So what we can offer you the cover for is what I explained. So you go off-road to drive to the campsite, and you're fully covered. I'd say you have permission from the landowner, you were fully covered. So what you've done today, Matt, to get to your camping location, that's absolutely fine. If you're wanting to do more, then we'd say get in touch with us, because one person's view of going on an off-road trek expedition will be very different to someone else's. So what you might think is okay, someone else might think that's really quite dangerous and they'd never do it. So our policy provides you, as if you're going to your campsite, going off-road to get to that campsite, that is okay. Anything more, then get in touch with us, is what we would say. Tell us what you're planning on doing, and then we'll speak to the insurance company and see if they will allow that. And then if they will, you've got that confirmation, you're fully covered. And if they won't, that's when you consider, well, you'll do something different, or you might go and search the market for a policy that will be suitable for you.
It still feels like a very grey area, and it feels like it needs defining in minute detail from an insurance perspective. But Liz, what best practices would you recommend policyholders follow to ensure that they are adequately covered?
I think it's as Jason's just said, it is, if you are planning this off-road activity, that you do contact your insurer, so that you can check the policy details with you. And if there's any ambiguity, get in touch and we can work that through, and we can speak to our underwriters to see if it is something that we might be able to cover. But obviously everybody's circumstances are going to be quite unique and an individual. It depends on what activity they're wanting to take part in, but it would be, if there's any doubt, contact your insurer, and they'd be happy to help.
Brilliant. Jason and Liz, thank you both ever so much for joining us. Have you got something else you want to add, Jason?
Yeah, I think it's also useful to point out that if you are going off-road and you are going on one of these sort of adventure trips, then there's potentially other things that you should consider. Now, from the insurance perspective, if you have equipment cover, for example, and our policy provides £5,000 worth of equipment cover, that may not be sufficient if you have a lot of off-grid equipment. And likewise, depending on the definition of equipment, certain items may not be covered. So I think it's important that you make sure you're fully covered for your equipment, either under the motorhome policy or via a separate policy. And secondly, there's the breakdown aspect. So again, our policy covers breakdown. We cover you if you're stuck in mud. But again, if you're going further afield and you're going to be on a mountainside, then you need to check that any breakdown policy is also going to recover you. And whilst you may be covered under insurance, check that you're not actually going to be left high and dry somewhere, as I say, on a mountainside.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we don't cover, worth mentioning potentially, is travel insurance. Do travel insurers consider it to be more risky if you are doing these activities? Again, it's just worth checking. I would say just never assume. If you're going to do one of these types of holidays, just double check with all your insurance companies.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And the lesson here is definitely check with your insurance provider before you head off, isn't it? Don't take it for granted that you're covered, because this is a new trend, both the camping off-grid and using one of these 4x4 type vehicles. Liz and Jason, thank you both ever so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it, putting you on the spot. Hope I've not been too hard with you, and thank you both. I also spoke to a director, Simon, at Atkinson Vos, a big off-road manufacturer of motorhomes, and this is what he said. So, Simon, as the kind of specialist in off-road capable camper vans, i.e. the Unimog, I mean, they're a fantastic machine. What do you do to make your customers aware of the insurance requirements for such a motorhome?
Do you want me to answer that honestly?
Yes.
Okay. Well, honestly, Matt, about 50% of our trucks go overseas. So insurance and registration requirements are quite different over there. We don't do the complete conversions. We are building subframes and empty boxes, usually with various accessories, bike carriers, roof racks, that kind of thing. So we don't tend to get involved too deeply in the insurance.
Are you seeing a boom for demand in this type of vehicle?
Certainly, demand has been very strong, really, since COVID. We saw a massive uptick in interest, in inquiries in that time. and it's really continued until the present day.
Yeah. So given the growth then and interest in these off-road capable camper vans, if I can call them that, what should new owners be aware of regarding the issue of insurance cover for these vehicles when they're going off-road?
Yeah, well, I think owners should certainly be confident that they're covered for off-road driving, whether that is a forest track to get to a nice camp spot by a lake, or really extreme off-roading through the desert or whatever, because these vehicles aren't cheap. So it's really important that adequate cover's in place wherever they're going.
That's Simon at Atkinson Vos. Now, we've looked at a lot of insurance policies and some don't seem to have specific wording regarding this issue, leaving it a grey area for the policyholder. But Matt, you've just got to make sure you ask the right questions when you're buying your insurance.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's all about the small print, isn't it? And understanding what are the terms of your insurance schedule and knowing what questions to ask. And I mean, the main purpose of this episode really was coming from Michelle's accident in her Heimer MLT, is raising awareness of whether you're covered or not.
Yeah, and just to recap on that, she was driving her Heimer. She went up not a big hill, a bit of a lump in the road, didn't she? It was too much for the motorhome and it rolled over. She phoned the insurance company and they said, you're not covered because you're off-road. And this is what spurred all this on, didn't it? So the main aim of this episode is to raise awareness of these stipulations of insurance and make sure that you aren't caught off guard, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing a massive change in the industry toward these vehicles that look very capable, and some are very capable of going off-road. Of course, many of them have been around for years. People like Atkinson Vos, they've been around forever. But we're seeing a trend of people like MOS Adventures, James and co, who are building fantastic looking vehicles that are four-wheel drive and will go off-road. And many people that are buying them are just not aware that they're potentially not insured. So my concern is that as an industry, we're evolving, but is the insurance industry responding and evolving in the same way? I suspect it's not.
Well, James Martin of MOS Adventure, sort of in that statement that he sent us, sort of covered it, didn't he? You can have a motorhome that looks like it could go off-road, but don't necessarily take it off-road. Go for the look, but stick to the highway.
Yeah, and as Simon said as well, there's loads of people that want the look, but they're never going to go up anything more than a curb.
But it comes down to when you're buying the insurance, doesn't it? So motorhome use is changing, but our insurance policies and insurance companies selling and advising people the right policies. Everybody wants to do the right thing. The insurance company is the person buying the insurance. So do insurance companies need to adapt their offering or how they present it? A few decades ago, government was widely criticised for application forms for benefits, and the campaign for plain English was started, and it revolutionised government communications. Is it a bit of time? Is it a bit of a time to introduce the plain English rule for insurance companies? Not take so much as read and explain to people in detail what they're buying.
Well, there's certainly been a big move not to hide in the small print. So make the facts of the policy, what you are covered for, what you're not covered for, very visible on the front page, so you as the policyholder understand, and you don't have to deep dive into the terms and conditions. But if something like this, I think you need to deep dive into the terms and conditions. We regularly, how often do we just tick the box? Say, yeah, I've read them, crack on, okay, I agree.
Yeah.
And we don't read any of them.
That's illegal, by the way. That's a legal contract you're entering into.
Yeah,
when you tick that box, you are saying that you have done what that paragraph in front of it says.
Yeah.
And whether you have read it or you haven't read it, if you tick the box,
you've said you have.
That's it. You are committed.
And you're bound by those T's and C's. So I want to campaign to insurers and ask them to respond to this movement within the industry toward these 4x4 capable and off-road capable vehicles, that if you're not going to insure these vehicles off-road, please make it clear that we're not covered. And if you do bolt on to your policy an option like you do for European cover, you bolt on off-road cover, make it clear that that's a cost option that we can buy, and please make it clear when we're not covered in that off-road scenario. Because if I was in Michelle's shoes, rolling over my 70 grand motorhome to then find out I'm not insured, thinking I would be shocked too. So we need more clarity on this. We've approached many insurers and we're waiting for lots of responses. This takes time, but we will revisit this. Already some have responded and saying we don't have clarity on this in our policy. It's not something we include, but I'm sure insurers will respond to this. They certainly need to, and I'm hoping we can get to the underwriter who writes the policies and we can look at making change and affecting change, which means we, the consumer, are properly insured.
Because it's going to be good for insurance companies and for the consumers. And the problem with a lot of us when we buy insurance, we're always trying to make it as cheap as possible. And sometimes if you've got one of these new vehicles with the big knobbly tyres, as Matt says, you're going to have to pay more for insurance if you want to go uphill and down dale.
Yeah, and we've recently just seen as well that some insurers won't insure a vehicle that's over £100,000 in value. So we have a number of listeners I know that are listening to this, and like MOS Adventures, there's 150k. It's an expensive asset. Getting insurance for that is really difficult because many underwriters cap the value at 100k. So that's something I was unaware of. And as values of motorhomes go up, the insurance industry has to respond to that too. But this off-road issue is one that I think lurks in the corners and could catch you out very, very easily. Yeah,
ask the question next time you're buying insurance. If I go off-road, am I covered? Ask the insurance company. And my message to insurance companies as well is ask the customer when they're buying from you, do you intend to take this vehicle off the road?
Yeah, particularly if it's got off-road tyres. And increasingly we're seeing people changing their regular standard motorhome for off-road capable tyres, partly for a look, because they want that kind of, action hero look. And also it's easier in a campsite or on a wet field. Are you off-road in that scenario? So let's have some clarity on this because it seems too grey to me and it needs to be clarified.
It's the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
It's our Q&A, our question and answer. Luke Worthington is in Wiltshire.
Hello, Matt and Keith. This is Luke from Wiltshire. I've got a question regarding the law, whether it's legal to drive a camper van with a half-diner table still in place. My van is a 6-meter Ducato, and the handbook clearly states that the table must be removed and placed in its secured location before driving away. Now, I have visited a few camper vans on dealers' forecourts, and some of the vans don't seem to have a designated place to store the table away. And salespeople don't even know where the table should go and seems to be unaware if it's legal or not to drive with the table still in place. I'm obviously concerned if there was a crash, the table would, it could be a lethal weapon. Okay, waiting for your answer and great podcast. Cheers, bye.
Cheers, Luke in Wiltshire. Much appreciated. Good question. Most things in motorhomes and camper vans, they're designed to fold things away and lock things away and slide under here and go over there. But he's having trouble with his table.
Yeah, exactly. So if the table's freestanding, so it's got a crisscross leg that folds flat, normally there is somewhere to stow it behind a dinette seat or under a seat. That's normally the case. That's actually a British caravan design where you put the table away. Many motorhomes, they'll have a table that's either fixed to the wall or on a leg fixed to the floor, so the table floats, so it moves around and can't be removed. The ones that are fixed to the wall, often you can lift them up and lift them off and take them away, which is particularly useful if you're putting a child into a car seat or with a child in that seat in a car seat. There's not enough room, so you take the table out, so it's not in the way. The question then is, where do you put it? So it's not just a table. You've then got a table with a fixed leg on it, folded in an L shape, which becomes a really, really powerful weapon in an accident. Now, the place to put it, if you can, would be in the garage. Common sense prevails here. In the garage, out of the way, so in an accident, it's not going to become some kind of weapon that comes from behind and hits you on the back of the head. possibly tucked on the bed, perhaps secured to the wall in some way would be a good idea. But your question, Luke, is it legal? There is no law, to my understanding, that means you can't drive in a motorhome or camper van with the table in situ. It's about common sense and about safety. I'm not aware of any law that would stop you from travelling with that table in situation. If that table is loose, freestanding, definitely put it away. That's common sense. If it's fixed to the wall, ours is, we have an Adria twin. It's fixed to the wall at one edge and on a leg that does fold up, and we can remove it. We do travel with it in place. But one thing I do is when we are travelling, I make sure that the table is tight up against my seat as the driver and I'm pushed back against the table. So in an accident, that table is better secured than just on its rail. So no law as far as I'm concerned, but use common sense.
And is Velcro your friend?
Velcro, well, you'd have to be very NASA.
I came across something brilliant the other day, something called alien tape. You ever come across this stuff?
No.
It's clear. It's got millions and millions of tiny little hairs on it. And as long as you've got a smooth surface, it will stick to any smooth surface and will not come off. Alien tape. I recommend it.
Were you stripping your chest hair again?
Yeah. We've had two very similar questions submitted from Ian and Sally Shakeshaft in Warrington and Teresa Emerson in Kings Lynn. They both have a Bailey motorhomes, an Adamo 69.4 and an Adamo 75.4T. Ian and Sally say they've read on some forums that people have removed the two pop-up travel seats to reduce the weight and therefore increase the payload. It's been pointed out by one or two individuals that this may invalidate the warranty or insurance, even though the seats are attached to the chassis using 4 bolts, so they're easily removed and not affecting the structure. Teresa says that on their Bailey Adamo 75.4T, they're struggling with payload and they never use the rear passenger seats, so thought about removing them. However, when she rang her insurance company, she was told it would invalidate any insurance. Matt, you're the expert. What do you reckon?
Well, I was surprised to hear it would invalidate the insurance. I don't know why. I mean, you've removed the seat, so you've changed the capability of the vehicle to carry 4 people. It's now down to 2. But I would clarify that again with your insurance company, Teresa. We actually asked Simon Howard, the marketing director at Bailey, for clarification on this. He said, yes, it is possible for a customer to remove the Agouti travel seats in their vehicle without invalidating your Bailey warranty to create more user payload. Good news. They would, however, need to have a new furniture frame constructed to support the cushions, which currently sit partially on the back of the travel seats.
He went on to say, in addition, even if they're not going to use them, they would need to keep the travel seats and fixings as they will needed when they come to sell or Part X their vehicle. And finally, if they should change their mind and want the seats reinstated, then this should be done by an approved Bailey service centre. While this may sound a little pedantic, he goes on to say, as these are safety critical items, it's vital that they're installed correctly. So in summary, therefore, yes, it is possible to remove the travel seats, but it is not necessarily a completely straightforward exercise.
No. Some expertise is going to be required, particularly when putting them back in, because these are approved travel seats on the certificate of conformity. So the vehicle's been approved for 4 travelling seats, and it's vital that they are fitted safely and correctly. So putting them back in, I would say, is more important than taking them out. If your insurance company is challenging you on whether you're insured by taking them out, then I would definitely have a longer conversation with them and start shopping around.
Tina's in Lichfield. As an extra security measure for my new motorhome, would I be safer with a wheel clamp or a pedal box? Also, which brands would you recommend? Fantastic podcast, by the way. Woohoo!
Thanks, Tina. Love that. So pedal box is a great little invention. There's a company called ATE Fabrications that make a blue one. We've tried to get them in our shop, but they don't really make or sell enough and have enough margin in it for us to retail them. So you have to buy them direct from the manufacturer. ATE Fabrications, they're called. And there's a company called Malenko that make a yellow one. And basically, just to explain, if you've no idea what I'm talking about, they are a metal box that locks around the 3 pedals, the clutch, brake and accelerator, with a padlock, and you secure the pedals so you cannot drive the vehicle. Simple. and very, very effective.
Simples. There you go. Cheers, Tina. Andy Brocky is in Larbert. Have been a long-time listener and love the podcast. I really like the product of the week and would love it to come back as a constant feature, especially trending and useful products. Where is it?
Andy, we got good news. It's back next week.
Hey!
Stay tuned.
As you know from listening or watching past podcasts, Matt keeps all these products down the legs of his trousers and reveals them with a flourish.
Only on YouTube.
Yeah. So, Matt, how do people get in touch?
Really easy, and we would love it if you'd ask us your question at mhmp.info/ask Matt. Click the orange button and you can record your question. Please tell us where in the world you are, or fill out the form, submit it, and we'll read it for you.
We got a new review from @ArioMB or Ariomb. What does it say then, Matt?
What a fantastic show, balanced and informative, and really has something for everyone, from the seasoned motorhome owner to those looking to get into owning one. I like the fact they put the information across in a light-hearted way, but give you the key points to follow. If you own a motorhome or caravan, this is the show for you.
Thanks, Mum. You can leave your own review at mhmp.info/review. That's mhmp.info/review. And what about the YouTubers?
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you hit subscribe and the little bell. And our YouTube channel is brought to you by arrowbasecreative.co.uk.